Truck-based SUVs promise go-anywhere adventure, but most spend their lives on pavement, where they handle like barges in a storm. These are the 10 worst offenders for sloppy, boat-like driving. The #1 spot goes to a premium luxury SUV that, despite its six-figure price tag, drove so poorly that owners complained it felt more like a work truck than a Cadillac. Number 10, 2008 to 2021 Toyota Land Cruiser J200, the off-road legend, Pavement Slug. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a vehicle that might be a shocker. An absolute icon of durability and off-road chops, the Toyota Land Cruiser 200 series, sold from 2008 to 2021. This thing is a legend, famous for its ability to survive the harshest places on Earth and just keep going. So, how does a legend land on a worst handling list? It's here because it makes zero compromises for its off-road mission. The US version was powered by a brawny 5.7-liter V8 engine making 381 horsepower, and it tipped the scales at a hefty 5,690 to 5,850 pounds, with original prices climbing from around $66,000 to over $87,000 for the final models. It was a premium purchase. While its highway ride can be pretty smooth, that same suspension tuning makes you feel totally disconnected from the road. You feel every single pound of its weight when you try to turn. The steering is often described as ponderous and heavy, and it just doesn't give you the feedback you need to feel confident on a curvy road. It has a tendency to float over bumps in the pavement, which is fine on a straightaway, but can get a little unsettling when you need to make a quick maneuver. This floatiness is a classic side effect of a suspension built to flex and swallow huge bumps, not for sharp, responsive driving. You feel this weird delay between turning the wheel and the vehicle actually changing direction. It's this disconnected sensation that earns it a spot on our list. Don't get me wrong, it's a world-class off-roader, but for daily driving, it has that unmistakable truck-like heft and float that defines the boat experience, constantly reminding you that it would rather be anywhere but on asphalt. But as disconnected as the Land Cruiser feels, our next SUV takes that floaty feeling into the luxury space, promising a premium ride, but delivering something far more nautical. Number 9. 2011 to 2024 Infiniti QX80, the Wallowy Contradiction. Coming in at number 9 is the pre-2025 Infiniti QX80. For more than a decade, this luxury SUV has been a rolling contradiction, a fancy, leather-filled cabin bolted to a chassis that just can't hide its work truck roots. It's based on the Nissan Patrol platform, sharing it with the Nissan Armada from 2017 onwards, and the QX80 has been constantly called out for its profoundly boat-like driving dynamics. The main issue is its body-on-frame construction paired with a high center of gravity. This combo creates a signature wallowy ride. The vehicle heaves and sways over bumps like a ship on a gentle sea. Under the hood, a potent 5.6-liter V8 produces 400 horsepower and 413 pounds-feet of torque, but it has to motivate a vehicle weighing over 6,000 pounds, some trims reaching 6,491 pounds, with prices for recent models ranging from the mid-$70,000 to nearly $90,000. The handling just doesn't match the luxury promise. The steering is a huge point of criticism. It's famously numb and over-assisted, giving you almost zero feedback from the road. It creates a weirdly disconnected feeling, like you're piloting it by remote control instead of actually driving it. Even with its powerful V8, which is great for towing up to 8,500 pounds, the driving experience is about managing the vehicle, not enjoying it. You're always making tiny corrections to keep it tracking straight, fighting its tendency to wander. While Infiniti loaded it up with luxury, they couldn't cheat physics. It's a textbook example of a vehicle where the rugged bones completely overpower any attempt at agility, leaving drivers feeling like they're the captain of a yacht, not a luxury SUV. Infiniti is trying to fix this for 2025 with a frame that's 25% stiffer torsionally and 57% stiffer laterally, plus new electronic air suspension and adaptive dampers. But for over a decade, the QX80 was a champion of the wallowy ride. But while the QX80 feels like a fancy ship, our number 8 spot goes to a premium family hauler that couldn't hide its jittery, truck-like ride, no matter how much chrome it wore. Number 8. 2015 to 2020 GMC Yukon, the premium rig with a jittery ride. Our number 8 spot goes to the GMC Yukon from the generation right before the 2021 model year. Sold from 2015 to 2020 as the slightly ritzier cousin to the Chevy Tahoe, the Yukon promised a more premium feel. It delivered on the fancy interior, but it couldn't escape the family DNA, especially when it came to how it behaved on the road. These pre-2021 models were built on an old-school truck platform that used a solid rear axle, a design that's tough, but notorious for creating a busy, unsettled ride on anything but glass-smooth pavement. Depending on the trim, it came with either a 355 horsepower, 5.3-liter V8 or a 420 horsepower, 6.2-liter V8, with prices ranging from around $46,000 to nearly $70,000. For many owners, the result was a constant stream of little shakes and shudders making their way into the cabin, especially at highway speeds. While some reviewers praised its composed handling, others pointed out its trucky feel and the jittery ride quality that comes with body-on-frame construction. Compared to unibody competitors, the Yukon's road manners felt a generation behind. The steering was another sore spot, often described as vague and lacking any sort of precision, a common complaint about the electric power steering system. This forced some drivers to make constant tiny steering adjustments just to keep the beast pointed straight on the highway. This 1-2 punch of solid axle ride quality and imprecise steering is the calling card of boat-like handling. While GM finally fixed many of these issues by moving to an independent rear suspension in 2021, the generation before, it remains a perfect example of the compromises you had to make with older body-on-frame designs. It was huge, and it was comfy on a straight line, but its driving dynamics were undeniably nautical. GM eventually fixed this, but our next SUV is a brand new 6-figure land yacht that proves even modern tech can't always tame a heavy chassis. Number 7. 2022 to present Jeep Grand Wagoneer. The 6-figure land yacht sailing into the number 7 spot is a surprisingly new face. The Jeep Grand Wagoneer, launched in 2022 as a high-end flagship to battle the Cadillac Escalade and Lincoln Navigator, the Grand Wagoneer came with immense size, a gorgeous interior, and a price tag to match. Unfortunately, it also came with a driving experience that has a hard time justifying that price. Even though it's packed with modern tech, like an air suspension, the Grand Wagoneer can't hide its incredible weight. It's powered by a 6.4-liter V8 with 471 horsepower and tips the scales at 6,326 to 6,420 pounds, depending on configuration. That sheer mass, plus its body-on-frame design, leads to a floaty ride and substantial body roll in turns. The air suspension tries its best, but it can't beat the laws of physics, with a starting price of $87,845 to $89,995 and easily climbing past $105,000 for the top Series 3 trim. You expect precision. The feeling is one of immense heft, a disconnectedness that makes the vehicle feel slow and clumsy. Reviewers noted its vague steering feel and a jiggly ride on less than perfect pavement, with the pickup truck structure contributing to an uncomfortable ride quality over rougher roads. Making matters worse are widespread reports of poor reliability, especially with its complicated electronics. Owners have complained about everything from glitchy infotainment screens and recurring battery problems to serious issues like engine failures, cylinders misfiring, sensors malfunctioning, and vehicles shutting down while driving, problems that have left many stranded. Multiple owners report their vehicles spending weeks or even months in service, with some filing lemon law claims. This unreliability just adds insult to injury on top of the sloppy handling. When you're shelling out 6 figures for a luxury vehicle, you expect a polished, confident drive. Instead, the Grand Wagoneer often gives you a wallowy ride and a sense of what's going to break next, making it feel less like a precision machine and more like an overpriced, unreliable land yacht. But if you think a new 6-figure SUV handling poorly is bad, wait until you meet its more mainstream cousin at number 6, a sales champion that mastered the art of leaning in corners. Number 6, 2015 to 2020, Chevrolet Tahoe, the people hauler that leans. At number 6, we've got the Chevrolet Tahoe, specifically the generation sold from 2015 to 2020. For years, the Tahoe was a sales champ, the default choice for anyone needing a big, do-everything SUV. But its popularity was always about its space and utility, not its driving finesse. And just like its ritzier cousin, the Yukon, this era of Tahoe was a master of poor body control. Built on the exact same truck platform as the Yukon we just talked about, it had all the same handling problems. It featured a 5.3-liter V8 with 355 horsepower and weighed between 5,300 and 5,600 pounds. That solid rear axle meant a jittery ride on bad roads, while the soft suspension allowed for way too much body motion. On the highway, it could feel floaty and disconnected, forcing you to constantly make tiny steering inputs to stay in your lane. Take it on an off-ramp, and you'd be met with so much body lean that it actively discouraged you from trying to have any fun. With original prices generally running from the mid-$40,000s into the mid-60,000s. The steering was predictably vague and over-assisted, giving you almost no idea what the front tires were doing. This creates a real sense of detachment for the driver, making this already huge SUV feel even more intimidating to park and maneuver. On top of that, the NHTSA gave it 3 out of 5 stars for rollover resistance, with a calculated rollover risk of nearly 23%, which is higher than car-based crossovers. The Tahoe was a champion at hauling people and stuff, but its on-road manners were ponderous and boat-like, which is exactly why GM spent considerable resources on a new platform with independent rear suspension for the 2021 models. But as bad as the Tahoe's body lean was, our number 5 offender is a tough tow rig, with steering so light it feels like you're barely connected to the road at all. We're halfway through our list of land yachts, and believe me, the waters only get choppier from here. If you're enjoying this list, or if you've ever had your own seasick experience with one of these SUVs, do us a huge favor and hit that like button. And if you want more honest reviews to help you avoid a massive mistake on your next car, make sure you subscribe. Now, let's get back to the countdown. Number 5. 2017 to present Nissan Armada, the tough tow barge. Claiming the number 5 spot is the current generation Nissan Armada. Since it shares its platform with the global Nissan Patrol, a super rugged off-roader, the Armada is undeniably tough and has a beast of a V8 engine that's perfect for towing. But all that toughness comes at the cost of on-road agility, earning it a reputation for classic, boat-like handling. A huge problem with the Armada is its steering. It's incredibly light and over-boosted. Under the hood sits a 5.6-liter V8, making 390 horsepower, but it has to lug around a curb weight of approximately 5,700 pounds. With original prices starting in the mid-40s and going over $60,000, you might expect a more refined experience. Pair that with a suspension that allows for a ton of body sway and lean in corners. The vehicle's massive weight is always front and center, leading to long braking distances and a general feeling of being clumsy and slow to react. The all-new 2025 model addresses this with electric power steering, a quicker steering ratio, improved chassis rigidity, and available adaptive air suspension. But for years, the 2017 to 2024 generation has been a prime offender. This mix of vague steering and a soft, swaying ride means you're always working to keep the Armada pointed straight. It doesn't inspire confidence and can be genuinely tiring on a long road trip. While it's a comfortable and powerful hauler, its truck frame and suspension tuning are all about towing and durability, with driver engagement and agility left far behind. That focus solidifies its place as a modern SUV that still drives like a heavy, old-school barge. But while the Armada's steering is a problem, our next SUV felt outdated for over a decade, earning its reputation as a reliable relic that drove like a vehicle from another era. Number 4. 2010 to 2022 Toyota Sequoia, the reliable relic. At number 4 is another Toyota, the second generation Sequoia. This thing was made for an incredibly long time, with the models from 2010 to 2022 being part of a generation that debuted back in 2008. It was a fortress of reliability, built on the super sturdy bones of the Tundra pickup truck. That longevity is impressive, but over its very long life, its driving dynamics became painfully outdated, making it one of the most boat-like SUVs you could buy. The Sequoia's defining trait was its disconnected and wobbly handling. It used the same 5.7-liter V8 as the Land Cruiser, with 381 horsepower, to move its roughly 6,000-pound frame. The steering felt almost totally isolated from the road, with little feedback or resistance. With an original sticker price that started around $39,000 and rose to nearly $70,000 in its final years, the experience felt dated. Combine that with a soft suspension tuned for a pillowy ride, and you get a serious case of body-on-frame float. On anything but perfect roads, the Sequoia would gently bounce and sway, creating a disconnected feeling that could easily make passengers sick. While its off-road ability and legendary Toyota reliability were huge selling points, you just couldn't ignore how it drove on the street. It felt like a vehicle from a totally different time, a throwback to when truck-based SUVs made no apologies for their ponderous nautical nature. For anyone who spent most of their time on normal roads, the Sequoia was a constant, floating reminder of the compromises that came with its tundra-based toughness. But the Sequoia's floaty ride is nothing compared to our number 3 pick, a tower of power from Ford that had a serious problem with leaning in every corner. Number 3. 2010 to 2017 Ford Expedition, the leaning tower of power. Crashing into our top 3 is the Ford Expedition from the generation that ran from 2010 to 2017. As Ford's answer to the Chevy Tahoe and Suburban, the Expedition has always been a mega popular family hauler. But for this entire era, It was saddled with handling that reviewers often called out as feeling dated. The main problem was its inability to control its own massive weight, weighing in at around 5,550 to 6,130 pounds depending on configuration. You could feel the Expedition's momentum in everything it did. From 2010 to 2014, power came from an older 310 horsepower, 5.4-liter V8. For 2015 to 2017, Ford upgraded to a 365 horsepower, 3.5-liter twin-turbocharged EcoBoost V6. It had a serious tendency to lean hard in corners. This body roll was a constant companion, forcing you to slow to a crawl for turns that a modern unibody SUV wouldn't even break a sweat on. The suspension gave a comfy ride on straight roads, but it could feel floaty and uncontrolled over bumps, leading to that classic boat-like heaving and swaying. Adding to the maritime experience was the over-boosted steering that had no real feel or precision. It just made the giant SUV feel even bigger and more disconnected from the road. Ford made huge improvements with the 2018 redesign, but the models from this period are still a benchmark for wallowy, top-heavy handling. It drove exactly how it looked: big, heavy, and completely like a truck. Even newer generations aren't immune to complaints about ride and transmission issues, but our number 2 spot goes to an even bigger beast that took all the worst traits of its shorter sibling and amplified them into a truly unsettled cruising experience. Number 2. 2015 to 2020, Chevrolet Suburban, the king of unsettled cruising. Taking the silver medal for the worst driving experience is the Chevrolet Suburban, specifically the models built before the 2021 redesign. As the stretched-out version of the Tahoe, it took all the questionable handling traits of its little brother and made them even worse. For decades, if you needed to move a small army and all their gear, the Suburban was king, but piloting this land yacht was a full-time job. The pre-2021 Suburban was notorious for its wobbly, clumsy road manners. Its immense length and truck frame, complete with that solid rear axle, resulted in a ride that was soft, yet constantly unsettled. Power came from a 355 horsepower, 5.3-liter V8 with an optional 420 horsepower, 6.2-liter V8 available starting in 2019 on top trims, weighing between 5,586 and 5,822 pounds, and priced from around $50,800 to over $70,000. It was a huge investment for a clumsy ride. It would shudder over small bumps and float over big dips, creating a motion that could make you seasick on a long trip. The body roll was even worse than in the Tahoe. It felt like the rear end of the vehicle was on a totally different schedule than the front when you went around a corner. The steering was super light and vague, giving you no sense of connection to the road and requiring a firm hand just to keep its massive frame from wandering out of its lane. This combination of a wobbly ride, epic body roll, and imprecise steering made the pre-2021 Suburban the poster child for driving a boat on wheels. It's no surprise that General Motors finally switched to a modern independent rear suspension for the new generation, a quiet admission that the old design was just not cutting it anymore. But as wobbly as the Suburban was, it pales in comparison to our number 1 spot, a 6-figure luxury SUV that charged a fortune for a ride that was anything but premium. Number 1. 2015 to 2020, Cadillac Escalade ESV, the 6-figure fraud. And here it is, the undisputed heavyweight champion of driving like a boat. The number 1 worst truck-based SUV is the pre-2021 Cadillac Escalade, particularly the long-wheelbase ESV model. Marketed as the pinnacle of American luxury, this was a vehicle that promised a first-class experience, but delivered a ride straight out of the bilge. Underneath all the chrome and leather, the 2015 to 2020 Escalade was just a Chevrolet Suburban in a fancy suit. It used the exact same body-on-frame platform and, crucially, the same primitive solid rear axle. For a vehicle with an original MSRP that started around $74,000 and soared past $96,000 for top trims, this was unforgivable. That truck DNA resulted in a ride that was shockingly poor for a luxury vehicle. Power came from a 420 horsepower, 6.2-liter V8, but even with the available magnetic ride control, the suspension couldn't hide the jitters from rough pavement or control the nautical body roll in corners. Piloting the long-wheelbase ESV, which weighed close to 6,000 pounds, was a true maritime challenge. The vague, over-assisted steering gave zero confidence, while the vehicle's immense size and weight made it feel clumsy and ponderous. You weren't driving it so much as you were managing its sheer bulk. The Escalade from this era represents the ultimate sin of badge engineering, charging a massive premium for luxury, but failing to address the crude, truck-like foundation. It was a loaded luxury land yacht that completely missed the luxury part of the equation, earning its spot as the #1 boat on our list. So, while these SUVs deliver a bad ride for a big price, what if you could get a great ride for a bargain? In our last video, we show you how to find premium Japanese luxury cars that are famously reliable, all for under $25,000. Click the video on your screen right now to see the 10 best Japanese luxury cars under $25,000 that refuse to die. You won't regret it.